Donald Trump is under multiple criminal inquiries, but there are signs he may face charges in the first of those this week. For more, I want to talk to the reporter who perhaps knows Trump the best, senior political correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman, who has been awarded a Pulitzer Prize for her coverage of the former president. Maggie, behind the scenes, what can you tell us about how Trump is handling this situation?
Look, Jake, he's very anxious about the prospect of being indicted for a couple of reasons. Yes, two things can be true at once. He is aware that there are reasons to believe this could help him politically. We have heard a lot about this morning already. But he does not want to face getting arrested, which is what happens when you get indicted. You get fingerprinted, you get brought in, you have to ask for bail. None of that is something that he is excited about. So he and his folks, his political folks, are preparing for a huge blitz politically to push back on the Manhattan District Attorney. You saw that start yesterday, although I don't think that his Truth Social post yesterday morning calling for protests was part of a grand plan. He did it and a bunch of his aides were surprised by it. But I do think that that is separate from what you're going to see legally. And while I know that his folks are suggesting this is a weak case, they don't actually know what the evidence is. What it is trivial compared to the other inquiries. That doesn't mean there won't be a conviction, and they have to be mindful of that.
Trump called on his supporters, as you noted, to protest and, quote, take our nation back on that Truth Social post. Obviously, the last time Donald Trump called for his supporters to rally, it resulted in an insurrection at the Capitol. Does he have any concern about violence?
No, this is not something that, he expresses enormous concern about to anyone. That doesn't mean people around him are not concerned about what he's saying about protest, and they are, because as you know well, he is still under investigation. One of these inquiries by the Justice Department is about the events leading up to January 6th and his efforts to stay in power, and there have been lots of people, hundreds, arrested in connection with that attack on the Capitol. So this is not something he voices a whole lot of concern about, but it is absolutely something folks in his world are mindful of, that this is going to keep coming up, especially as he pushes this.
And this is having an effect of rallying Republicans around him. I mean, you have Speaker McCarthy calling it an outrageous abuse of power. That's not that surprising. He's always been very supportive of Donald Trump, but even would-be rival Mike Pence says he's taken aback, and he says it reeks of political prosecution. We heard Governor Sununu today suggesting that he didn't think this rose to the magnitude of such an unprecedented action. We still have not heard, however, from Nikki Haley or from Ron DeSantis. What do you think is the political calculus there?
I think that Ron DeSantis is going to try to avoid weighing in on this as long as possible, and he will then decide whether as long as possible has been met. You saw yesterday on Twitter one of Trump's advisors, Jason Miller, highlighting that DeSantis has not said anything yet. DeSantis is obviously the governor of the state where Trump lives, and, should Trump decide he's not going to surrender, should that not happen peacefully, if he is indicted and, expected to be charged, then DeSantis would have to make some decisions. And so this gets very complicated. Trump's own folks are aware, and this came up last week repeatedly as I was reporting this out. They believed that if Trump was to be charged, this could put his rivals in a bind, especially Ron DeSantis, because they are going to be called upon to speak out against it. And as you just noted, the pressure is already building.
So Trump says he's committed to staying in the 2024 race, even if he is indicted. That sounds completely characteristic, but is it realistic?
I don't think it's unrealistic, depending on what else happens, Jake. If it is just this case, then I think it isn't unrealistic that he stays in, although we have no idea exactly when a trial would be. Would it even be this year? Would it stretch into next year? The point, I think, is that we are talking about potentially multiple indictments. We are talking about an indictment in Georgia possibly happening in the coming months. We are talking about indictments from the federal government happening in the coming months. That becomes a lot of freight to carry in a presidential race. And you can start to, see a world where Republicans might say, on this one case in Manhattan, we feel it's trivial. But these other cases, this drip, it's just constant drama, and let's move on. We'll see.